Oh dear
That's
God.
a bit of projection on your
All
part.
right, are we ready to start?
Yes. Okay. I'll do the intro. I mean, we could all do a little intro, but since this was kind of my idea, I figure it's fitting for me to lay the premise here. So the first assertion is that porn is the most dangerous drug of our time. And I'm using the word drug for a specific reason. And so I think the first part of this conversation will dive into the definitions a bit of the word drug. But if that gets boring or you're not interested in the definitions, we can move on to like more moral or, philosophical arguments there. But I think that if I could just lay out why I'm using the word drug here. The word drug itself is this label that is poisoning the well of language. It means a lot of different things and has a lot of different connotations depending on whether it's a drug store or a drug war or whatever it is, prescription or recreational or illegal or whatnot. But it seems like the most fitting description of a drug is a substance that alters your state of mind. For better or worse, whatever it is, it alters your brain chemistry. Now, porn is not a substance, of course. It's not something you ingest, just like anything you watch on TV is not something you ingest, but the physical effects on your body and on your mind are pretty much indistinguishable from a drug. And in my opinion, more invasive and more accessible, and therefore more potentially dangerous and addictive. And so, if anything is a drug, if that's a useful term at all that we're going to use in society, then porn is certainly a drug. Do you disagree with that at any point?
I mean, yeah, we're agreeing you're using a metaphorical definition of the word drug. So I,
Well, I mean, a
by agreeing to do
metaphorical.
the debate in the first place, I'm conceding that already.
Okay.
It's not literally a drug.
All right, Mr. Girl loses. Wrap it up.
Well, but do you see if the word drug has any utility, it should have utility in this context of a mind altering experience, which can be highly addictive
A
and
drug is
destructive.
actually a mind-altering substance.
Yeah,
So
but
again, I can concede that you want to use
Hold
the
on,
word.
real quick. Or is Mr. Girl gonna do an intro, or are we just jumping in?
yeah, sorry, I kind of
All hot
got
and
ahead of
ready.
myself. So that's my like premise here. And if you guys want to say something, go for it.
Mr. Girl.
Thank you. Uh, I think you should actively moderate this. I think this is gonna go off the rails. So I think we're gonna need
Oh,
your help.
I hope so. Yeah, that was a very formal intro. I'm ready to hear some F slurs to get thrown around.
Yeah, of course. Um, my intro would be that I believe, like anything else, porn can be addictive, but it is not intrinsically destructive to the psyche. Um, to in any more serious way than I guess anything else, video games, sports, any other recreational thing. You can form a very unhealthy relationship with it. I think that people who do form unhealthy relationships with it tend to demonize it and then try to get other people to demonize it too, which is also understandable. I have empathy for that. Um, yeah, uh, but
What purpose do you think porn has? Can I ask that?
I don't know, Willie. Can he?
Do you believe it serves any purpose?
I will say the title of this stream, "Porn is the most harmful drug of our time." I am excited to hear how you'll you'll quantify that.
Yeah, you probably didn't have to go that far. I think you may have overreached, but I think we should be charitable.
I could qualify it. Would you like me to? I kind of just did, but I'll do it. I'll go into more detail because I was just being. That was
Yeah, yeah.
just
Just get a basis. What's the opening
okay.
argument?
So
I
okay,
guess 'cause
that's
you got initiated.
all right. Well, I'll try to get more specific here. So, why would you consider heroin or cocaine a drug? Because you take it, it has an effect on your mind, it has an effect on your reward system, your dopamine, whatever chemical effect you can measure, right? And it's also something that like, okay, you might say, well, exercise also releases endorphins and it feels good and it's addictive. And it's like, yeah. And that's something which is endogenously produced by your body. It's something that's like we've naturally, for however long humans have developed or whatever, exercise has been part of our biological needs.
Yeah, so I probably see watching porn more like working out.
Okay. So difference there, though, is that porn is completely
You guys are
detached.
both crazy. Go on.
Well, okay, porn is nothing like working out because it's completely detached
It
from.
is. You're doing some motions. You're getting something done.
It's a simulation. Porn is a simulation that you're watching on a screen that the screen is imagining for you. It's an experience that's only felt through a simulation, through a visual, auditory simulation on a screen. That is a
Okay, so
layer
it's like working
removed
out,
from reality.
Listening to music.
Well, listening to music is something that you experience, and it's more like a universal language. Porn is not.
I think sex is clearly also a universal language. I'm just saying, if we're trying to fight a strict one.
Okay, let me think about that. One second.
Listening to music is a simulation of an experience. It gives you endorphins, it makes you feel good, and you're doing something physical at the same time, along with it, partially fueled by it. And I would say listening to music while working out is an okay analogy for watching porn, in terms of how much of a drug it is, not in terms of how healthy it is.
Okay, then I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Even if I were to agree with you that music is a simulation of sorts, I'm not necessarily against simulations in principle, but there is degrees to which they're detached from reality and the purposes in which they serve. Porn is a stimulus detached from its purpose completely, as far as I can tell. And maybe if you can give a counter argument, I'm willing to hear it. But in other words, it's like you're just fulfilling this selfish, lustful desire, self-gratifying desire with no actual purpose, and hence why you have people often feeling senses of regret after jerking off to porn, because you're just self-gratifying yourself. That's all. That's the only purpose it serves.
What makes it harmful? What's the rabbit hole of porn? I guess just to clarify for me, because I'm a little confused right now. You guys are using big words. Dumb it down.
Okay. May I? Since he's asking me. Okay. The harmfulness of porn, as I see it, both from my experience, from people I know, and even certain amounts of literature and studies that have been done on it, is that on a basic level, it's rewiring your brain's reward system, because I'm talking about men specifically here. Men are very visually stimulated when it comes to sex and sexual desires. And what porn is, it's this screen. It's this, it's not something you're never going to see 1,000 girls with their tits out fucking in real life. I mean, if you are, you're going to some crazy fucking parties.
I have.
Okay. Congratulations. But
Yeah.
the idea is that there's a level of stimulation that can only be achieved through the internet, through the screen, through thousands of videos and pages of it, that you're not going to, average people are not going to get in real life. Is that
Just
Go on, Mr. Girl.
I'm confused about what the central point of what you're trying to nail down here is.
Well, I'll finish and then you could figure out what it is. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
So, having access to this free, pervasive, and plentiful amount of sexual stimulation, which, by the way, sexual stimulation is one of the most stimulating things. There's eating a hamburger, eating chocolate, exercising. These are there's a scale of dopamine or whatever that this releases. And at the top of that scale, barring heroin and cocaine and certain drugs, which is why I'm calling porn a drug, at the top of that scale, what humans can naturally experience is an orgasm, is, sexual gratification. Anyone who's jerked off knows this, okay? And, well, the problem I see with it, the reason I think it's harmful is because of all these factors, there's two things that I take issue with. One, it's so accessible and it's so pervasive that you can just, and people often do, they jerk off at the end of the day, every day or frequently, and they treat it like it's a dopamine release. And it's something that I believe a lot of people are addicted to. It's something that's been shown to show similar patterns in the brain.
Where does it become harmful is what I'm trying to figure out here.
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
can't.
saying? We understand that part,
Okay.
but where does the harmful part come
Okay,
This may
well,
be
the
a
harmful
limitation
part.
of me or what you're saying, but I cannot follow what you're saying.
Okay,
No, let
which
him
part is
finish.
confusing?
He's got it.
Okay,
go
yeah.
on.
I haven't finished.
I'm
I haven't
telling
gotten to the point yet.
I can't
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Okay, well, you can ask me a question after to clarify. This is more for Willie Mack because he's asking me.
Mm-hmm.
So, the harmfulness I think comes from a few different things. One is it warps your perception of real sex, reality, because it is a distortion of reality. Like I said, it's a simulation of reality so much, and it's so detached from reality. It's so contrived and so, unlike real sex that I think and I've felt this, I've had this experience.
It like makes you objectify like women and all that. Is that what you're trying to say?
Not necessarily objectify women. It's probably manifests differently for different people. But for one example, it makes you have like these wild expectations of what sex is. For some people, it maybe in some ways makes them objectify women. For some people, their fetish is what they need to get off has to be more and more novel each time because the human brain seeks novelty.
Yeah, you start off, you're just watching normal heterosexual porn videos, and the next thing you know, you're watching the midgets. The midgets do the nasty.
Yeah,
I understand. That's the age-old classic.
So
you're saying like it's a first
it's a dark rabbit hole. It's a very deep dark rabbit hole.
First, just smoke weed, and then you go on to do like crack or whatever, right? Like the fucking.
Well, that's the bad outcome.
What's that called?
The gateway drug. But
it's a gateway. Porn, like the gateway.
See, but unlike substances, this is why porn is the worst drug. Okay, substances. What you said about weed. There's nothing.
Answer the question about how porn harms you. You're saying porn.
He's kind of getting to that though. The gateway. So this is where it gets bad. What's the next?
So porn.
Thing,
so you're already acknowledging that some porn is actually not intrinsically harmful to you, but that there is more worse porn, like fetish.
Well,
porn
I didn't acknowledge that.
Porn,
I didn't say it's not.
I don't know what kind of
harmful.
porn you're talking. Gay porn. I don't know what kind of porn you're saying is that. What's the bottom of the rabbit hole where you've really debased yourself and are now harming yourself in the world.
Yeah, as quickly as you can, just to make it quick.
Okay.
Where does it become like bad? When is it like fucking bad? You know, even if the title of the stream is just like a little bit of a hyperbole, right? Just for the general sake of the conversation, when is it gone too far?
I mean, that's a really hard question to answer because the line depends on where someone stands philosophically. It's like, for me, the line is maybe like where if I'm in a relationship and I'm starting to project porn fantasies onto my partner. For someone else, that might not be the line. The line might be like, oh, fuck, I'm watching midget porn. I've gone too far. So you see, that depends where you stand morally, is what I would say.
I morally draw the line at midgets.
I think you guys are being bigoted.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, to the midgets for sure. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
To little people. Yeah. I think laughing. I think it would feel pretty shitty to watch two people laugh at the idea of watching you have sex.
This is why we're on YouTube, though. If we were on Twitch, I'd have to censor.
Wait,
this.
repeat that.
I could be openly bigoted here in
You said I think it would be shitty to.
I think it would be horrible to be a little person watching this and hear people laughing about the idea of someone being attracted to you.
If that's like the kink is little people, I think it would be hilarious.
Well, it's not
make
so
fun
much
of people for that.
It's not so much. I think the victim, the actors are just as much victims in this as the consumers actually. So I'm not. It's not so much. I'm laughing. What's up?
I've made porn. Do you think I'm a victim?
That's not really a question for me to answer.
Fucking link me right now. Let's see this shit. Proof of age?
Whether or not you're a victim is.
It's openly known that I've made porn.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I know.
Okay, but we could establish though, Mr. Girl, I think we could agree that there's a level of stimulation and accessibility with porn because of the internet, because of technology, that you just simply cannot achieve realistically in real life. Is that true?
No.
Okay. Well, that seems to be a hard point to.
I've masturbated in front of a mother and her daughter at a party before. I've seen a fire off the shoulder of Orion. I've seen things that you couldn't. I've done things that are more extreme than the porn I've watched.
Maybe you are a victim then.
Maybe I'm a perpetrator.
Maybe.
Okay. So do you think that stuff has had any negative impact on your life? You know, just jerking off do you think that's healthy to just jerk off in front of a mom and her daughter? That sounds fucked up.
The mom and her daughter. It was the mom's house, and she invited her daughter to her sex party. for some reason.
And you partook in that?
Yeah, I asked.
What
I was at
the
this
fuck's the
party
story behind this? This is crazy.
Okay, so I was at this party where all the men had to be naked,
Okay.
and this girl was like, asked me what I was into. I told her, and she said, well, I'll watch you jack off, but you have to ask my mom first.
How old is she where she has to ask her mom for permission? How old were you?
I was 27. She was probably 21, 22.
Okay.
I don't think she wasn't asking her mom for permission to watch me. She was asking, not for her to watch me. She was saying my mom was like, sets the rules at the party.
Look,
It's not a
when this
normal thing to jack off at a party.
when this
Even
yeah,
you know
especially
that,
at your
Willie.
mom's daughter's sex party, dude. When this started off, I thought Glink was a little crazy, but maybe he's right. Maybe porn is harmful, dude. I don't know anymore.
Well, I don't think porn made me do that. I'm just saying that if you are open to having crazy sexual experiences in real life, you can. It's not porn doesn't have to be an unachievable fantasy if you relax a little.
When you
That-
can I ask you when you were first?
Is that a fantasy though? Is that a fantasy for you?
Yes.
Can I
Okay.
ask when you were
I mean, not
first?
specifically the mom and daughter part. That was I just well,
Yeah, go on. You can.
I don't know. To some people, that would be a fantasy, and I've done it now. I did it before I even thought. It never occurred to me. Okay, what were you gonna?
No,
ask?
When did you first get into porn? If you, I mean, you don't have to get super specific, but like, how was that
My
experience?
friend in 6th grade gave me a. This is like right. I think this was. You couldn't really get porn on the internet till I was like 14. But when I was 12, my friend gave me a naked, printed out picture of Jenny McCarthy, and I worshipped it.
Do you think that was healthy?
I do. It was the first picture of a naked woman that I had ever possessed.
Is worship like hyperbole when you say worship? Like, do you
I
just mean?
masturbated. I masturbated.
Yeah,
to
you
it.
just
I
jerked
started
off, dude.
masturbating
Is
when
all
I
that
was
means.
10.
Okay.
I started masturbating when I was 10. I started masturbating to that pornographic image when I was 12. Although I was masturbating to like the sex scene in Terminator and like other sex scenes.
Yeah, the Titanic titty, my first boob. Most
Yeah,
kids my
so-
age, first boob.
Yeah. I was already 12.
What about when the internet or when your access to the internet came? How did that affect your consumption?
My
of it?
friends, I think honestly, hentai was the first porn I started looking at on the internet because my
Fucking
friend,
crazy,
I was
man.
like, I was like, you could draw anything, you could draw anything. This is crazy, but yeah, my friend
Could draw
and
anything.
You can draw anything. My friend.
What was I guess like when did you get into like the crate? No, this is just out of curiosity. If it's cool if I just like go off the rails a
Well,
little
I
bit
would
here.
say I start the first.
When did
the
you
first-
get into like the party? Like when did that start to escalate? Was that because of porn? Just I'm curious. That's why I'm asking.
I don't think so. Maybe porn helped me. No, I've always been an exhibitionist. Even when I was a kid, before I even knew what porn was, I knew that somebody had to watch me
Yeah.
jerk off at some point. I knew that was going to happen in my life. Wait, I think the second time I masturbated was in front of my friends. I think
Do you think that's standard?
I don't know if it's standard. I think it happens.
Okay. Well, Glink, I don't know how to follow this up, man.
Well, you see, this
Well,
is
anyway, my
okay.
point
Go
in all this
finish,
is to
no.
say it's just to say that like I don't see porn as an unrealistic window to another world because I live in that world.
That's
Who
an
framed Roger
honest
Rabbit, my
statement.
chat is saying, yeah.
It's a very honest
Exactly.
statement. Well, see, okay, then I would say we live in different worlds because I have the internet, I have this screen here, but I don't want to live in this warped world of consumption and commodification. I want to live in this natural world, and I guess
Okay.
I don't know if you do.
What does natural to you mean? What do you mean by that?
Natural means the world of, I mean, the nature that's all around us. That's fractal. That's mathematical. That's beautiful. That's harmonious. That's cruel.
But quantify that for me. What does that mean?
I can't.
In
You
terms
can't
of this
quantify.
conversation?
Well, it means I'm more Okay, in terms of this conversation, what it means is I'm more interested in experiencing a loving relationship with someone than I am jerking myself off to some weird fantasy online. That's what that means.
I guess I just don't think
Okay.
those are mutually exclusive.
I feel like they're conflicting a bit, and it's hard to. It's
I don't
maybe
see how they are.
Well, because
I'm
they're
in a
both working
relationship,
on the
and
same.
then I jack off to terrifying porn.
That's
But
good for.
I'm still in a relationship.
Okay. You
Look,
know,
look. Can we just poll the chat? I mean, surely everyone in chat watches porn. I mean, look at these profile pictures. I could already tell some of you sickos are watching porn.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I don't know
Look,
if
for-
it's inherently just instantly bad. But
for the record, I want to say I'm not claiming to be better than Mr. Girl or better than anyone. I've watched tons of porn. I've seen, and I've jerked off a ton of times, and that's why I know I'm saying this is not because I'm like
Okay.
better, but because I've experienced the dark side and I've experienced the light side, and I feel like
Yeah.
I prefer real life connections. And you're saying, Mr. Girl, that you can maintain both. Maybe
guess
in
I
your
don't-
case, but I think that's a rarity. I think, and even if you can, I think you have to acknowledge that these are both working on the same reward centers of the brain, and they're both occupying a similar area of the fantasy. The sexual fantasy. It's not completely disconnected. Your fantasy with your partner and your fantasy with porn. These things are conflicting at some point.
I don't see how they're conflicting. I mean, I don't feel like every time I masturbate, I'm making a decision. I'm like, okay, who's gonna get this load? Is it gonna be the love of my life, or is it gonna go to sick fucking porn? Like, I feel like I actually feel like my drive to have sex is pretty separate from my drive to have sex with myself. It just feels like I know when I don't want to deal with another person.
Okay. Then let me pose another potential pitfall for you, because I think this is related.
Okay.
What you just said is sometimes I want to have sex with myself. I take issue
Yes.
with that, actually, because I think that leads to, or is basically an expression of narcissism.
I have masturbated to my own porn.
Yeah. But I think, do you see how that could be narcissistic?
Yes.
You don't view that as a negative.
No. You
'Cause
don't
you're-
think some level of narcissism is acceptable to you?
I do think some level of ego is necessary for this world, I guess, but it's also there's definitely a dark side to that, and it seems like
I mean,
you're
we're all
pretty
live
deep.
streaming. It's already narcissistic.
It is a bit. You're right.
It's not sexual. It's not entirely sexual, but it's not overtly sexual what we're doing.
You're right. There's a balance there, and I feel like there's a balance there. I don't know if you feel like there's a balance. In other words, is there
No,
a
I feel
point
like
to
you're
you?
overly concerned with balance and harmony and like making sure it's like you're you're a spiritual perfectionist.
all right, can I ask a question? Just because it seems like we're sputtering out here a little
Are
bit.
we? I think this is great.
Well,
Go on.
whatever you
You
want.
can ask.
What I guess to Mr. Girl,
Yeah.
what is can sex become harmful or porn become harmful at some point? And when does that happen?
Yeah, I would say when you're not able to maintain relationships, you can't go to work, you can't sleep. You're when you get to the
So you
I've-
get, like,
so I would
straight
say
up addicted.
I've had yeah, when you get addicted. Like I've had phases of being addicted to masturbating. Or like I would like have a roommate. I would have a roommate come to look at a room in my house to live there, and then before they moved in, I'd be like, "Is it okay if I masturbate in the living room?" That's probably addict behavior.
At your roommate's house?
Well, in my house. that
Oh,
my
in your
roommate was
house,
gonna
right?
live
Your
in.
roommate. Okay, I'm caught up.
Yeah. So to be fair,
Does he hang out?
she.
She? Oh, so were you guys like
this is not
dating or
present.
any
I'm
of
just
that?
saying in my past. I would say
Yeah.
in my past, every.
Sorry, this shit's
maybe-
interesting, so I
I would say
feel
I would
like I
say
asked the question.
95% of women I've lived with have given me permission to masturbate in the living room of the house.
Okay. But
Um,
okay.
Now, wanting to set your life up to be like a sexual fantasy, I would say that's addict behavior. Yeah, that's not. That's probably not healthy. Also, because after you say that, there's an expectation that you are going to. Then you sort of have to.
Well, Well, see,
masturbate.
this is why this turns into a spiritual or philosophical, whatever you want to call it. It really depends on what you believe morally is right or whatever.
I'm trying to answer a goddamn question here.
Well, no, and I'm extrapolating from your answer.
No,
You
it's
draw
that
the
you're
line at a certain.
moralizing. My answer is strictly
I'm not
about
moralizing.
functionality, and it's not functional. Once you have a roommate, you have some sexual deal worked out with your roommate where like any moment can be sexualized at any time, or and then they're all sexualized, and that makes it harder to like date somebody with more traditional values. It makes it confusing, like just even having friends over. It just sexualizes your like entire space so that everything is sexual. There's also been times in my life where I'm like, I'd want to masturbate for like 6 hours, and it's like when you're like your friends are like, oh, do you want to go see a movie or something, and you're like, no, I don't. I want you to get the fuck out of my room so I can get to work here. Like that's addict behavior. So I would say that there's been times in my life where I've pushed people away, I've pushed away relationships or opportunities, or even like professional relationships that could have been beneficial to me. I've allowed to become sexualized, or I've sexualized them, and yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if
That's not a good
I would
thing,
say
is it?
that all falls under sex addiction to me, not the porn itself. I've never really liked porn. Like I watch it, but like I also like reading stories or reading like forums or like pictures.
Yeah, the
Like
plot
I would
lines.
say my sexual material like um what am I consumption is pretty varied. It's not all porn. I'd rather like text with somebody than look at porn. But I told Shaylin I wouldn't do that anymore.
Do you have any? So let's just say, like, I don't want to make this so much about you or me because I think this is the greater problem, which is why I'm saying it should be viewed and treated as a drug. Because one thing I've noticed is that people from a slightly older generation, they didn't have this instant access to pornography in the palm of their hand any time of day that we have now. And I feel like there was a certain bridge crossed, a certain line crossed where, you're talking about you had that image that your friend gave you is just like a magazine or poster or picture or whatever, stimulating as that might be. And you jerked off, you worshiped it, whatever. Okay, fine. It's still just this static image. It's not like 100,000 pages of girls being fucked in every which direction in every possible scenario, which is what what I'm talking about is. And so to me, I think going forward, like this younger generation, Gen Z, and whoever beyond them, they're born into this world. They're getting phones at age, whatever, 7, 8, 10, whatever it is. And they're getting they're being exposed to this highly stimulating stuff and consuming pornography at a very young age. And when they don't
average age of first looking at porn is 11 now.
How do you feel about that? I mean, because I don't think that's a good thing at all.
I feel fine about that.
Okay.
Well, like the average being 11, maybe 11 is an okay age. I guess the average being 11 implies that there's a lot of like
Yeah,
a
what is
7,
there,
8, and 9.
6-year-old? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
weird.
6-year-olds looking at porn, probably not good.
Why do you draw the line at 6?
That is a good question. Where would you
Here's
draw
the, here's
that
the
line?
answer. The answer is I don't think children should view porn without some context and understanding. The way porn is now is a lot of the people in it are unhappy, and the way they act in the porn is like emotionless and weird and fake. And like my main problem with porn is that it just seems very inhuman of people just being like, ooh, wow, oh, that feels so good, I'm having such a great time, and it's like just super fake. And the problem with the 6-year-old watching that is that they don't have the context. Willie?
We lost Willie.
I'm here. I just got to replace the battery.
But keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Okay, so a 6-year-old needs context to be able to understand what they're seeing, but I also don't think it's really ethical to have that conversation to give them the context with a 6-year-old. I think they're just too young and it's too weird. So I think that at 11, I can imagine like my child saying like, "Oh, I looked at porn and like here's what I saw," and then me being able to say, "Well, just so you know, just so you can understand like some context about what you saw, blah blah blah." Whereas I wouldn't. I guess if I found out like my 8-year-old child looked at porn, I guess I'd try to have that conversation. But it just seems like you're in real murky, confusing waters where like you might expose them to something they're not ready for just in trying to explain something else they weren't ready for. Yeah, that's why I think it's too young. Hey, Willie, you're.
Well, I mean, I agree with all of that, except I would go further and say porn porn at any age, but especially as a developing child, is very potentially harmful to their sexual desires as they get older, to their reward system, to their idea of what sex is.
I don't find porn that rewarding, I guess. I don't feel like a dopamine explosion when I look at porn. I just feel like.
What about when you jerk off or when you come?
Yeah, when I come, I do, but I could do that without porn. And as you said, for a few years, the dark ages from 10 to 14, I had to. Wait, Willie, can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
See,
your camera's small.
I'm very tiny right now. Yeah.
I think that's health. I mean, whatever you want to call it, I think that's healthier, what you just said, versus somebody who's 14, first exposure to porn, first time jerking off. Like, in other words, jerking off before getting to see porn, I think that's actually a healthier way to get to know yourself, your desires, whatever, than...
Sure.
But that's not, in the modern age, do you see, like, you didn't have access.
Before you jerk off.
Yes. I'll say this, I don't want to make this about myself, but since you shared a little bit, maybe I could share for some context.
Love to hear you share.
Okay. My first exposure to porn, the Wii Internet channel, 2000,
No.
yes, 2008 or so. I was like 14 or 13. I was in eighth grade, I think. And it was weird. Like, a lot of sites would be blocked because there was no JavaScript, but for some reason, some porn sites would work. And oh man, I was in my own room. That was my first time having access to my own internet in my room on the TV, no less, with the Wii. So I started playing with my Wii, and that was a huge, like, every fucking night, for probably a couple years. And I don't know if I would say this is the cause, but I didn't also really show much interest to girls in high school. I didn't date anyone in high school. And maybe part of it I would equate to the fact that I was just, all my sexual desires are met with just jerking off to the screen every night. So, and I've since, in the years, college and after that, I've teetered off, and then now I don't watch porn at all. And if I do jerk off, it's just with imagination. But I think that did
jerk off. What the fuck does that mean, asshole?
I mean, I do, but not very frequently, not like every day, like maybe like once every 2 weeks or so. But
oh God.
But you see, I think that
it's like telling me you drink water every 2 weeks.
I don't think you need to jerk off that often. I've heard stuff actually that if you jerk off more than like once a week or something, you're something about just like you'll be depleted more with testosterone or like different hormones or something. I don't know if that's
I'm
true.
worried about you, dude.
But that's my experience.
Jake, a lot of fighters, yeah, it's like a big thing to not like jerk off before a fight.
That's true. Mike Tyson famously didn't jerk off before.
Jake Paul, even all these guys.
Hey man, there's something to that. Listen, when you don't jerk off, I swear to God, you channel that sexual energy into power.
Like manic.
I think you become
manic
manly
if you don't jerk off.
I do, yeah. I think everything's a good idea. I'm happy to see everybody. It's like,
oh, that's great.
It's not great though. It's not real. I feel like
you don't think that's real, but you're cool with porn. That's not real.
The real me, the post-nut clarity me, is the real me.
No, that's like
I'm like, oh, that's how I feel about all of these people.
Here's the post-nut clarity. Actually, this is what I imagine yours is like. If you allow me to humor you, it's like, okay, sure. Oh, wow, that's a good idea. I could do this. Okay, this is you, like 2 months no fap. Okay, wow, the good idea, whatever. Jerk off. Oh, nothing matters. I don't need
I
any.
guess what is what is a little weird to me is I guess you aren't even that avid of a watcher when you were with porn, are you, Mr. Girl?
Right, I'm not. That's the thing is that like porn. Okay, if
And
I
I
could
was.
psychoanalyze, I'm gonna reverse psychoanalyze you a little bit, Glink.
Okay.
It feels to me like you were not able to access your sexuality without porn.
No, I certainly
then-
have. I certainly have.
Well,
I've-
it just seems like without porn you're more like repressed, and then with porn you're a monster. And I just think that maybe if you were more connected to your own sexuality without like even the story you told, are you saying that you were not masturbating until you had the Wii?
That's true.
Right. So it feels like you're it's an electrical circuit with a lot of voltage or current or whatever the amperage, whatever the word is, and it's like you're trying to keep it from connecting, and then that Wiimote connected it, and then it was like this supercharged thing, and then but like without the porn there at school you're asexual again, and then you're just like, oh, I don't need it, and then it just seems like you have a very powerful sex drive, but it's not connected to anything, and you just keep it isolated, and then porn like connects it. But I feel like if you could get more in touch with it and just like integrate it more as part of yourself, then it wouldn't be this like huge deal.
I think you're right. And that was true for a long time because, and this is back to the dangers of porn to make it less about me. I'll just say I've in like the past 4 or 5 years, I've definitely changed my path, and I feel like I have connected with myself sexually without porn, and with others rather, because I think it takes others. But that aside, I just want to say this, not just my experience, but because I know other people are having a similar experience, especially as we go forward into younger generations, where yes, my first sexual experience in every way was tied to porn. And for a long time, it stayed that way because of that. And so that's the danger of porn. It's so accessible. It's not like heroin is bad. It'd be bad if my first high was heroin, but
maybe
I
that's
didn't have
also just
access.
the danger. You could also reframe this as being the danger of being sexually repressed until you're 14.
I don't think I was sexually repressed. There was no Catholic school or, strict religious upbringing. I just didn't, I didn't have those experiences for.
I guess I just think not masturbating until you're 14 is sexual repression definitionally.
Or you just hit puberty later, right? Wouldn't you, when did all that shit go down for you? Were you a late bloomer, or did you?
Me? Kind of. I was like, I was like 14, 15 when my voice dropped. But you're saying sexual.
I mean, let's
repression.
be real. Open porn has not existed for that long, right? I mean, there's been
That's what I'm
generations of people where it's not existed.
Even Mr. Girl, he didn't have open pornography access until 2 or 3 years after he was seeing the image.
I didn't, but yeah, like I said, I hit my first orgasm when I was 10. Maybe I was hypersexual or oversexual. I could believe that, but to me, the idea of like.
You're making this a personal problem for me, as in I'm personally sexually repressed.
It a personal problem for me.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it's a generalized problem.
No, you did. You said You said my post-nut clarity is that I think nothing matters.
Well, that was a joke. That was a joke.
It's not really. It was sort of a joke.
And it's sort of half true, probably. That's for you to answer.
No, I
not
don't
me.
feel like nothing matters after I masturbate.
Okay.
I feel like I know what matters and I know what doesn't matter. I feel like I could see. I feel like I can see all.
See everything.
I feel omniscient. Yeah.
I feel like I care less about potential romantic interests, or I care less about sex after I nut, and I'm less energized, less motivated. It's draining, not just in a sexual way, but it's like. It's just kind of like, whatever. I'm just gonna chill.
Sex or porn? What are we talking about?
Well, that we're just talking about post-nut clarity or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But I think there is a utility. I'm saying I'm not against jerking off in principle. It's just I think it should be done somewhat infrequently, not every day, and not to porn. But
I guess my romantic interest is different from being horny. So I still have crushes.
Do you have like an
So
open relationship? Just out of
no,
curiosity, just asking.
I have, but not my current relationship is monogamous.
Okay.
But like I still feel romantic love and um, desire for companionship even after I orgasm. I just don't. I like. Yeah, I don't want to have sex with my partner after I orgasm, but I still want to like hang out with them.
Yeah.
So I guess I just don't. I don't see. I never felt like a drop in my drive to date if I jerked off.
Well, do you acknowledge though that part of dating, part of wanting to be with someone is that sexual desire, right? That's a big part, actually, I would say. Is that sexual, is the
Uh,
lust based, let's say.
it's part of it, and it's a necessary part of it. It's like a foundational part, but it's like I'll know I'll be horny. I know I'll be horny again. I would say my drive for you can have sex outside of a relationship pretty easily, but you can't have intimacy and love outside of a relationship very easily, or to me, like really at all. So I would say the drive for love is what makes me date more than the drive for sex.
That's good.
And the sex is just like, hey, listen, I have to do something horrible to you every once in a while. But
Why is it horrible?
other than that, you're my little love
I
bug.
don't know what kind of sex you're having.
Sick sex.
Okay.
Because it's like it does feel a bit compartmentalized. I feel like that's true of everybody. Like when you're like having bunny kisses and you're walking around in the meadow and there's butterflies, and then you're like, I want to make awful squelching sounds with your body. And then you're like, oh, but now we're back to being cuddly, nice, ooh, everything's so cute.
See, porn, I think porn acts to further compartmentalize. I mean, that's putting it lightly, but I think that's what it does. It compartmentalizes that to the extreme degree where like lust is this hyper stimulating, hyper like extreme, sexual thing. And then love for a partner is like this much more delicate, but I think these things should be, I feel like these things should be together because they're part of the same process. They're part of the same union between two people. Is the part of it is the sexual lust and part of it is the love. I don't think they should be compartmentalized. And porn acts on compartmentalizing it societally.
Yeah, I think it just seems like very Puritan.
Well, whatever it seems, that's not really a counterpoint.
I think it's an unrealistically puritanical, clean, sanitized view of how things are and how they should be. I guess I just don't agree with anything you just said.
If more people regarded porn as a harmful drug, it wouldn't be unrealistic for people for it to have less of an impact on society, and thus the compartmentalization of love and lust separately would be less of a problem.
I guess I think that you're just horrified by lust, as many are, and you're trying to pair it with something that makes it clean and
I mean,
nice.
without porn, do you think, this to Glink, do you think there isn't just like, that innate lust for like, oh man, I want to do this thing right now, or that girl's hot, I want to do this thing. I mean, that still
There
exists,
is. You're
surely,
right.
whether there's porn or not.
Absolutely. You go to any bar in downtown, you'll see that, I mean, firsthand. But here's
Shit, dude, even farther back, there's like books written in like the 1700s of people saying that stuff,
Yeah, but the difference is, of course, the lust is going to be there, and you might even act on it. It's not even unreasonable to act on it just in the spur of the moment. Of course, that's what casual sex is all about. But
Yeah.
when, again, this goes back to the experience. It's like meeting someone at a bar and going to their place, getting undressed, getting intimate with them. That is a very different process and you'll understand where you stand and how you feel in a completely different way versus porn. It's so safe. It's so detached. It's just immediately right there, sexual gratification. You know what I mean? Whereas like, oh, this is a person, this is a body. Like this is my body. Like, I mean, these are things that porn doesn't prepare you for. Even the point of view, you know,
It's
like
too easy.
yeah, it's too easy. It's too accessible. You know, you could have casual sex and fine, but you'll learn way more about yourself and about how you feel about sex from a casual sex encounter than you would from jerking off 1,000 times. So in a way, I think porn warps the perception of self.
I just don't. I
guess can I ask a question if you don't have anything?
Yeah.
I guess like, all right, if we're gonna go ahead and ban porn worldwide, like every Western country or whatever, right? It just bans porn. What like is how is the world, you know, better or worse off? What's the difference there? Like
Do you mean
know,
like
what's
ban
different?
like legally
legally?
I think people will just have illegal porn, and that will probably create a lot of underground crime syndicates and shit. You know, I don't think that'll be good. I'm not advocating for banning porn.
All right, well, let's say everyone just tomorrow says they're not going to do it. Does that change anything? Does that change all these people that are like manically jerking off or what?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it'll force you to, it forces you to not to confront your desires in a way that's not like on a simulated screen or in a instant gratification. It forces you to, hey, if nothing else, if people are still just jerking off, I think it's going to activate people's imagination, and that's more based to me in reality than, you know, I'm not against, again, frequency and all that. But if you're only using your imagination, I feel like for most people, it's going to be pretty hard to like jerk off like 4 times a day. Like that's just not going to happen. It'll be like, okay, every once in a while. So I think it will change.
Yeah, I agree that porn will allow you to jerk off when you're not that horny.
And that's okay. Here's an interesting point. Then
is that bad though?
That's where I would draw the line of addict behavior. That's where I think the addiction starts. Is when you start using it.
I don't think so. It's like having a snack when you're not hungry. I don't think it means you're addicted.
Yeah, I think that. No, I would say that this. If you're having like a sugary snack when you're not hungry, I think you're addicted to sugar. Yeah.
Even if so you're saying if I have one Tootsie Roll per day when I'm not craving one, I just feel like it, I'm addicted to sugar. I just think you're...
Is that bad? Let's say you are addicted to one Tootsie Roll a day. Is that bad, Glink?
To a very... I mean, again, it depends on the person. Me personally, you know, the one Tootsie Roll is like...
Or let's forget the one Tootsie Roll. A cigarette, or you jerk off an extra... Whatever it is, right? Yeah. Is that... When is it too many times? Is it 3 times?
I think that depends on the person, you know? It's like, I think there's a scale of these things. There's a spectrum. You know, jerking off 4 times to porn a day is like monumentally more. And it's not just an abstract spectrum, by the way. You can measure these things with the dopamine releases, with the chemical signals in the brain and all that. There's been studies where they find that porn addiction is just as bad as like cocaine addiction when it comes to rewiring the brain's reward system. So, you know, there's a spectrum of like, okay, the Tootsie Roll, it's such a minute thing that's like, yeah, that's not a bad addiction. That's like, whatever. It's just a thing. But, you know, if you're having like a cake every night, that's probably a lot worse, right?
I just think that I think that your view of this is very repressive, and that I'm only comfortable calling something an addiction if it's causing damage to a person's life. And I'm not interested in moral or metaphysical damage.
Is there any like stats out there that show like
I am interested
what percentage of people get into, like, does anyone have numbers on anything?
I think I would wager that like 90% of
the answer is no. What you would wager. That ain't a stat.
I mean, we could probably all agree that the majority of men in the Western world consume porn on a regular basis. I think that's true. I don't think that's
the majority of women consume porn.
I think women
I also agree.
Women consume porn very differently, though. I don't know if you guys have noticed. They're more into the fantasy, into the imagination. They don't like it to be so literal and so visual. They like the erotica. They like the story. You know, and I think that's less of a problem.
I think they like filthy smut, just like everybody else.
I mean, it depends on the person, of course. It's not. You know,
I guess maybe that's true.
But okay, you said you just said you're not interested in the metaphysical, moral. Yeah, see, this is where it would get into discussion about that because I think things matter, and I think what people do matters, and I think what
I'm
people
not saying
value
it doesn't
matters.
matter. I'm saying you're a fucking perfectionist, and your perfectionism is like perfectly centered around sexual repression.
Is it
Just your
is it a
view.
perfectionist to not want people's first experience with sex or people's first introduction to sex to be through a screen jerking off to some actor in a studio somewhere? Is that repressive? I don't think that's repressive.
I think that your obsession with like spiritual and metaphysical balance works to deny human nature.
I think your obsession with pleasure and human desire works to keep us as animals rather than us into something
Yeah,
greater.
we are. I see. We are animals, and I think that again we come back to this of this central, what I view as denial that you have that you are above the animal kingdom, and I just don't think you are. And I don't. And I also don't. Yeah, people say I'm like hedonistic or obsessed with sex, and I don't think I am. I have been.
You know,
And
I
I'm sorry
think
to
I
be
think
telling you,
you're
obviously.
the
But like,
reason I think this is an interesting conversation, or I think you have interesting conversations, is because I think you're honest about and to the fundamental level about a lot of things that most people, content creators or otherwise, whatever, people watching, this is why people watch you maybe, are also feel similarly about. They just don't know it. They haven't dug that deep maybe into their desires. But the truth
thank
is,
you.
the truth is, if you don't have a strong philosophical, moral, or spiritual purpose, or you don't believe that there is one, then the end result is you're just an animal. You're just going to jerk off. You're going to eat the banana, and that's life.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Yeah.
you'll probably end up living in the Matrix because who cares? It's all about pleasure and stimulation, anyways.
No, see, that's you're making a leap there, implying that I don't value hard work or that I don't value like the drama or in the adversity of life. That's not true. I do things that are challenging all the time. If I just wanted stimulation and pleasure, just the different choices I could make and probably have something pretty close to that, but I don't want that.
So you do believe in having a purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Good.
A self-authored purpose, though.
see, you're too attached to the self. That's the thing. You're very attached to the self.
And I think that you just don't want to die. And so you have to convince yourself that you're
I
this
think I've already
spiritual
died.
being. No, you haven't. But you're going to. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I just feel like most people just really don't want to die and construct some worldview about how they're different from a raccoon they saw run over by the side of the road. But we're not.
You think you're the same as a raccoon? What do you mean by that? Like,
I mean, I'm smarter.
I guess
than a
I don't
raccoon,
understand.
But that's it. I'm smarter than a raccoon, but I'm just as mortal as a raccoon,
yeah.
and I'm just as like I don't look at a raccoon and say like, well, the raccoon jerks off so much that like it's giving in to its basic blah blah blah. Like it's not going to be able to be. The raccoon's obsessed with the self. It just feels like when you transpose the stuff you're saying onto a monkey, it just sounds ridiculous. And so that's what I'm doing in my brain as we're talking. I'm like, it just sounds like you want to be more than human.
Well, I guess the difference is maybe we both believe we have a purpose, but you don't believe the purpose is anything greater than what is here in this material physical world. That's the thing. I believe there is.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, then, see, that's a big difference because it's like, well, what do you think art is? Or what do you think anything that moves you to a deep emotional level? I mean, what do you think that is? What is that? If it's all just numbers and materials and physicals and feelings, does anything mean anything, in other words?
Yeah, emotions are physical sensations in the body.
Caused
Just
by...
as track. neurotransmitters, as you yourself have pointed out.
Right. And these
You see a
neurotransmitters.
stimulus, you see a stimulus, and the little water balloons in your brain squirt out their goo, and then you say, "Oh God, this painting means that there's a spirit watching me," but it doesn't. It just your goo squirted, and it feels nice, but it's not. There's nothing more to it than that.
Who are you to say what there is and isn't more to? In other words, your
I'm a
view.
man of science.
Science doesn't tell you why things are. It just says what is happening.
It's obvious why we have strong emotions when we look at art, or when we look at other people, or when we look at blah blah blah. There's no strong emotional response that humans have, like getting horny when you see people having sex in a video. There's no mystery in that to me. I'm not like, oh gosh, why is it that when I see blah blah blah, I feel like it just all seems very evolutionarily based and clear why we've evolved to have those responses to things, and how they help the human race, how they help us communicate and cooperate in our quest for world domination. But I don't see there's no mystery there that I want to introduce spirituality to answer the
Then
question.
how do you explain
And again, it's just like
self-awareness?
part of introducing spirituality. There's always a part of introducing spirituality of like, and I also don't have to die. And it's like, well, that's convenient that you've identified a mystery that to me isn't there, and then your answer of why things are that way also includes that you're immortal, and so my response to it is always,
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, do you think that when you die that you're going to cease to exist forever?
I think this physical form will be gone.
Okay, so just say no. The answer is no. Everything that is you.
Well, what is you? There is no you. That's the answer. Is that there is no you.
You just the same.
You are just a collection of experiences.
It's like, what is a frog? There is no frog. No, a frog is just a collection of cells working together until it dies, and then it's nothing.
That's one way to look at it, but
I understand that. So let me just
Okay.
to tie it all together. This is where my mind goes when I hear people talking about spirits and purposes and blah blah blah. Is that there's always some part of this that's like, and I don't have to die. And so to me, obviously, the best part of the whole deal in believing whatever it is you believe is that you don't have to die.
I'm not saying
And
that.
so there's
You do have to die.
What?
I'm not saying that, though. You do have to die. Death is as much part of this as life.
To me, when I'm saying die, I mean die like a raccoon dies, like doesn't exist anymore. At all. No soul, no spirit, no energy.
Arrogant of you to assume that the raccoon's energy is just vanquished. I mean, energy is neither created
Energy-
nor destroyed. That's a scientific fact.
Exactly. So if energy is neither created nor destroyed, and I eat the raccoon, or say you die and I eat your body, every calorie that I expend after eating your body will be 100% accounted for. We will be able to name the energy that comes out of your body. And that energy does not have consciousness. Just like if I eat your finger, there's no part of you that's going to be like, oh, now I'm max now. No, that energy is accounted for, and there is no extra energy left that could be your soul.
Well, now
There's
you've
nothing.
reached the limits of science, because the one thing science can't seem to explain is consciousness. You
So
said
here's
there
my-
will be no
I don't-
consciousness, but there already
Consciousness
is.
is not mysterious. Also, I
Okay,
don't find
go ahead and
consciousness
explain it
mysterious at all.
scientifically to me then. What is the scientific purpose? Why do we have consciousness? Is there any reason
So you
scientifically?
can fucking stay alive and have sex and make babies.
Animals do all
obviously.
those things.
They are also conscious.
So animals experience the same level of self-awareness that you or I do. They're having conversations like this in their language.
No, it's a spectrum.
Okay.
A frog and another frog have some awareness of what they're doing and what's going on. A monkey has a much more awareness, and we have even more awareness.
Yes.
As I said to you in our last debate, you can picture an animal that has even more awareness, and that to them, we would look like stupid monkeys. We're not the apex of consciousness. We're just the smartest animal alive on the planet right now. But that doesn't mean that we have a soul, and it doesn't mean that you get to avoid dying. And so again, in every single metaphysical, spiritual argument, there is some component of, it's slipped in there with a little asterisk of, and I also don't have to die. And so to me, that's all I see. All I see is the big asterisk I see the title of the stream is, do I have to die? Debate with Mr. Girl. and then everything else is totally secondary.
Okay.
Because that's the most important part of what you're saying, is that you have a purpose given to you by a spiritual being or God, and that when you die, you will live on, and we're more than monkeys. And both, like, why do you want to be more than monkeys so badly? It's obvious, because when you see a monkey get crushed by a boulder, you know it's dead. And when you see a human get crushed by a boulder, you're like, well, they're with grandma now.
All right, I will respond to that in a similar way that you said all that. My
Bring it on,
perception
bitch.
is that it's actually kind of the inverse. It's actually see, it's not about, oh, and I don't have to die, to me at least, or at least in my view. It's more like death is as much a part of life as anything, and therefore I accept that I'm going to die. I accept that death is part of this, and I accept that before this, whatever my consciousness is now was not tied to this self that I look in the mirror and I say, that's me. That this me is just, it is these cells. It is this meat vehicle. It is all these things you're saying, but it's also more than that. It's also something that you can't just measure or quantify. Now, from my perception, I think it's actually you who's more afraid of death. I think the only reason.
Clearly.
Well, let me explain. I think somebody.
I'm not saying I've accepted death. I'm just saying I'm terrified of dying. I'm just saying that I have no illusions about whether it's going to happen.
I don't either.
How does this relate to porn?
It does. No.
Right now, I don't even know.
I'll tell you how.
The problem with porn is that he doesn't want to be an animal. That's how.
That's a very simplified and kind of the way we got here is because
kind of what?
Well, the way we got here is because Mr. Girl doesn't believe that there has to be he doesn't believe that we're more than just animals seeking pleasure. And so any amount of pornography, perversion is acceptable because...
No, I didn't say that. I said it's a problem when it's functionally a problem. It's a problem if you can't go to
only
work,
when it's
if you can't
functionally a
sleep.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah,
That there's nothing morally wrong about any kind of
Right.
porn consumption
Yes.
in the abstract.
Right.
It's
And
only a
the
problem
introduction-
functional.
Yes, and the introduction of morality, which you keep going to, is clearly based on a spiritual belief that humans are more than just animals. You don't have a problem with a monkey watching too much porn, unless you're going to be like, well, is the monkey eating and sleeping, and does it have friends, and if it does it have a girlfriend?
Okay,
or a
I'm going to
boyfriend?
stop
And the
you.
answer-
I want to stop you right there if you don't mind, because that's actually I disagree with the way you're framing that. It's not that humans. Sorry, restate. You just said that humans are only animals, right? Okay, it's not that humans
I'm
are
just
only
trying to-
animals. It's that.
Yeah.
It's more like consciousness is expressed through, like you said, a spectrum of different animals, of different life forms. We happen to be the top animal, okay, in this spectrum of consciousness. But my belief is that this conscious spectrum doesn't start and stop with the animal kingdom or even with humans. And I think it goes beyond humans. And I think it's hubris to assume that whatever this higher form of consciousness will be is just going to be another flesh and blood vehicle. I think we're the pinnacle of flesh and blood vehicles that experience consciousness. But I don't think we're the pinnacle of consciousness. That would be hubris.
Right, and I think that it's hubris to say that we're the pinnacle of flesh and blood consciousness.
So then you believe in aliens.
No, I'm just saying it's possible to make an animal on. I said this last time, and you didn't like it. I believe that you could create, or that there will evolve eventually if we don't destroy the world. Could possibly be an animal that lives on Earth that is much smarter than us. Now, we would probably kill it to prevent this from happening, but if we didn't do that, eventually I could imagine a species emerging, either from us or through a cousin or whatever, down the line, that is smarter than us. And to me, that means we are not the pinnacle of flesh and blood consciousness. We just happen to be on top right now. And part of the reason that we will likely stay on top until we go extinct is that we're genocidal. And so I don't see anything magical or special about that. So to answer your question,
Well, that's a personal
Willie,
judgment. It's
yes.
not a matter of fact.
Well, okay. to answer your question, Willie, the thing that ties together the argument about whether we're animals and whether we are connected, communing with the greater spirits, as Glink believes, is that his arguments for the inherent immorality of porn rest on a belief system that also says that we're not going to die and that we're not animals. And so I believe that what is the most attractive thing about that belief system, even if this is not conscious, is that we don't have to die. That's the reason people want to be more than animals.
I think it's something far more terrifying than that, and maybe that's why you don't want to accept my framing of it. Because in my words, it's we're going to die, and everything you do matters.
Because there's an afterlife.
There's some greater design going on. This back to the animal thing real quick. You're saying there could be a smarter animal. Okay, when that animal comes along, I'll take you for what that is, and that won't even change my worldview completely, but whatever. But there's not currently an animal. What I think is also possible, and I think people can experience such a thing, is that there's some sort of greater design at play that's seen and experienced in nature, in human nature, in different things. And there's lower parts of human nature. There's genocidal, sex crazy, perverted, pedophilic parts of human nature that can be unlocked. And there's also beautiful artistic expressions that capture the soul and the imagination. And that is something higher.
We're gonna let Mr. Girl respond in full here.
It's just a difference of belief. There's not much. Go for it.
I don't see how it is scarier to believe that there is a being watching over you, caring about every little thing that you do, and that this is all according to some kind of plan, and that there's a design. There is no design.
You said I'm sexually repressed. You are. I think you've said you're religiously repressed, as in your upbringing had some repression with religious institutions or something. I think I've heard something like that. I don't know if that's true. I don't want to assume here, but I think
I was raised to believe that there is no God.
Okay. Well, I would call that repression.
Well, I know you would, because you think there's a God, but you can see how, if to someone who doesn't believe there's a God, it's delusional to think that there is.
Okay.
Certainly further delusional to not at least acknowledge that it would be very nice to believe that your life has a objective meaning and that you get to go to heaven possibly.
You're saying it would be nice, but I could just throw that back at you and say it would be nice if this is all there was and nothing mattered and none of my actions mattered and none of this mattered. And I know that's not what you're saying explicitly, but
no, I would do anything to be able to go to heaven. I'd rather go to hell than die. I'd rather be tortured for eternity than stop existing.
So then you value life?
I value life.
Okay, we
not
agree on that.
Not objectively. I just want to stay alive. Just like
the raccoon. See, you're not going far enough. Because science is not a belief system. It's just the study of what is. On the chemicals in your brain, it's like science could measure the chemicals in your brain, sure, but those chemicals are derived from something outside of science. They're derived from a conscious experience. They're downstream. They're a measure of something. They're one viewpoint. They're a 3D viewpoint of something.
That's also, it could just be that's it.
It could be, but I've experienced more than just the numbers and physical reality, and I think
I don't think you've experienced anything that could not be measured in your brain.
It could be measured, but just because it could be measured doesn't mean that's all it is. Your love for your relationship with someone could be measured through the transactions you have on your dates or whatever, your credit card info or something, but that doesn't tell you your feelings for them, why you love them. Nothing, no numbers will.
You could measure that with neurotransmitters. The stuff you're saying would have a lot more weight a few hundred years ago when scientists were like, we have no idea what love is. We have no idea what feelings art produces in a human, how those feelings happen. We have no idea what's going on. Then you would have more of a gap to be like, well, why is this how it is? Maybe there's spirits. Maybe there's energy. Now we just know it's just molecules being squirted around in your brain and your bloodstream.
And thus, we've reached the end point of science. The civilization around us that was predicated on this scientific worldview is collapsing in on itself because it's empty, hollow, devoid of any meaning. And this is why you have people killing themselves at record high rates. This is why you have depression, specifically in the Western developed world, the scientific world. The Eastern world is not so much like that, depending on the country and the philosophy, because they didn't value just numbers and science.
Whether people are happy or not is not an argument about whether what they believe is true. Your assumption that if people knew the truth, they wouldn't kill themselves that's a fallacy. We don't know how people will react to the truth. It could also be that if people really believed they were going to go to heaven and transcend this fleshy hell, maybe we would all kill ourselves.
Maybe.
Say, oh, fuck, let's go right now.
Maybe that's a risk I'm willing to take. That's way better than this empty world, empty scientific worldview.
Are you saying you're suicidal?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Okay.
The risk I'm willing to take.
And I am similarly concerned.
Okay, let me clarify. The risk I'm willing to take is that I believe if more people knew the objective truth or believed in the objective truth, then you would have far less suicides. You would have far less depressive disorders and such, because there'd be people.
If you're debating me, you have to make a claim that would also hold true if what I think is correct, and then I'll.
Well, we're living in your worldview. We're living in the scientific worldview, and the claim is already proven.
If you're going to make a claim that suicidality is a measure of knowledge of truth, you have to get me to either acknowledge that I already believe this, or convince me right now that when people kill themselves, it's because they are in denial.
This is we have different definitions of the word truth. That's the problem. Your definition of the word truth is something you can measure and experiment and quantify. My understanding of truth is some greater. How do I say it? My understanding of truth is what is something like what is good, what is it's hard. Truth is, I think truth is something that is not just reduced to a fact on a data set. I'm struggling to come up with the words.
When you say truth, you are not referring to something that is verifiable or objectively true in any way.
I think that's evidence and that's proof. But true is an objective truth. That's what I believe. True is an object. In other words, I believe whatever God has such a label attached to it, but I don't mean one person, one guy with a beard, or one religious text. I mean one uniting principle that drives all of this creation. That is the truth to me, not a measurement of a facet of this creation, which science does. But that's,
But it's something. But you see that my issue with that is that it's something you can never verify, and you can just say is true based on your emotions about it or your thoughts about it.
That's love.
And
that's love, man.
So to use the word truth to describe a very strong feeling you have and a belief that arises from that feeling is, to me, a perversion of the word truth. I think we have to stick to.
You want to stick to the scientific worldview.
We're going to say the word true. I think true, yeah. I think it needs to be something that.
Well, I think your stance is clear. You're happy to be in the scientific view where.
No, I'm not happy about it at all. As I said, I don't want to die, and I spend a lot of my day dreading it.
Isn't it interesting that you don't want to die and you spend a lot of your day dreading it, and yet me, who supposedly who supposedly believes I'm never going to die and I'm just going to go on, is not as at odds with the idea of death as you are.
No, it's not surprising at all, because you don't believe that you're going to wink out of existence, which is the existential terror that I sit with every day.
But you think I'm self-deluding myself, basically.
I think you're probably being deluded by other people, and you are now deluding yourself, but you started out being deluded by other people who also don't want to die. Like most people have some escape hatch
Would you
built into their
accept that
belief system.
framing of yourself too? If I said the reason you feel that way about death, about all these things, is because
About any,
you're
you could say
deluded?
this with anything
Yeah.
in life. Yeah.
In other
Is
words,
the way
I'm
you
saying
feel about
You
things.
asked. Wait. You asked me from my perspective on if you are deluding yourself.
right.
The answer is yes, but you started out being taught this. Now, we also started out this line of questioning acknowledging that my worldview is more terrifying, and that is reflected in the amount of existential terror that I experience, which is greater than the amount of existential terror you experience. So if we're using existential terror as a barometer for how much ugly, horrifying truth you are willing to face, just from my point of view, it is not surprising to me that I feel more than you do. So then to say like, well, you are also deluded into thinking you're not going to heaven, Max. Like, sure,
That's not
you
what I'm saying.
can turn it around and say that, but from my perspective, no, that's obviously not the case. I just come
Okay.
from a
On the
family-
on the flip side, if I may,
yeah. Okay.
my feeling of greater existential purpose is also indicative of truth.
Truth. What's truth? Like the religion.
In other
truth?
words, you're saying
Told you,
your
truth is
feeling
love, baby.
you're saying your feeling of existential dread is tied to facing the horrors of the truth, and maybe that's
Of death.
death. Okay, and I accept that. I think that's a valid way to feel. Actually,
Okay.
I'm validating you, but
Thank you.
you have to. Well, you don't have to, but I think it would be fair to give the olive branch and say, well, my feeling of existential purpose is also tied to the truth. They're two sides of the same coin. That's how I view
I don't
life
think
and death.
so. I think it's tied to a lie,
Okay.
an
Is
untrue
is what's bad about
lie.
I like all right. So Glink,
Yeah, this
what's-
is pretty-
What's
pretty-
bad about Mr. Girl's point of view and Mr. Girl? What's bad about Glink's point of view? If it's a lie, like what's the problem with that, or the other way around?
You mean about
whatever.
porn, or what are we talking about?
I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. We've gone so
It's kind of a
right
philosophical
field. I didn't
yeah.
expect this to go into religion. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not religion.
Well,
it's just existential purpose and the question of
Okay,
whether
but
or not
it's-
there is
I
one.
would say- when he says religion, he just means spirituality.
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we agree that the fundamental reason that we disagree about whether porn is inherently bad. So again, my view is just that you had an addictive experience with porn, as I have had a sexual addictive experiences as well, and so that is why I think that you think that porn is bad and something about being really sexually repressed. Your view is that we're basically better than this. And so that's why we're getting into a debate.
All right,
about whether
I
we're
understand
animals
now. Yeah.
or not. Okay.
Wait,
So it's just you expect
Okay.
humans to be more.
Yeah.
let me frame. That sounds like a, I don't know if that's like a closing statement or whatever, but let me on that point, I'm going to respond or give my point of view or whatever of what this is.
Okay.
I'll keep it to myself. I don't want to make assumptions about you.
Go ahead.
What you said is somewhat accurate in that, yes, I have had my first sexual experiences were tied to pornography, and I do think that's warped my perception of sex quite a bit. But I've also grown out of that, and I'm not perfect. I'm not holier than thou. I'm not saying I'm like great. I'm just saying, in my personal struggles with that, I've gone leaps and bounds towards a greater purpose and a greater fulfillment sexually and in other things in life. But I don't think that experience was unique to me. I think that's a pretty common experience, especially with the accessibility of porn and technology and how pervasive it is. And I hear people tell me all the time, if you think that's worth anything, about that.
No.
And moreover, greater than that, that experience of that experience is also universal. In other words, my lower natured feelings of lust being gratified through a screen is universally lower than the higher nature feelings of love for a person I'm interacting with, I know intimately. So that's how I view it. And that's why I think porn is bad.
Any response, or are we wrapping up here? Are we going to closing statements?
even
Because
know.
I got 25 minutes.
Well, you asked why one view is better than the other, and I don't.
I think people have to choose ultimately, and I feel like Mr. Girl is evil Glink, and it's just two sides of the you return to monk and eat, monkey and eat the banana and jerk off and fuck whoever you want, I guess, or maybe see what
Fuck
else is
whoever
out in the
you
great
want.
unknown.
Do you think you shouldn't fuck whoever you want?
I wonder how you would react to a good psychedelic trip. I think your viewpoint would be drastically different.
Yeah, I know.
I view psychedelics as like the anti-porn. That's the interesting thing.
Do you
What?
think psychedelics
Why is
are-
that? Yeah.
Because I think porn gratifies the self and attaches you more to the self, and psychedelics dissolve the self and make you realize, oh wait, there's something way bigger at play here.
Do you think you shouldn't have sex with whoever you want?
Shouldn't have sex with whoever you want. Generally no, because who is the key point here? It's not just about you wanting to have sex. It's about them. It's about a union. I think sex is about
Okay,
a union.
consensual sex. I'm not saying you should rape people. I'm saying, do you think there's certain people it's bad to have sex with?
Yeah. Yes.
You need
Midgets.
to
Bring
No.
it back.
find that.
It's different for every person, isn't it? For me, it's like, I'll tell you this. Here's a great example. Okay. 2 consenting adults are in this scenario. I'll tell you a personal story. I'll keep it kind of short.
Okay.
I was at a bar a couple weeks ago. I'm sitting there. I see this girl from across the bar. Looks very attractive. She's got like short jean shorts. It's like slutty cowgirl look. Okay.
Yeah.
She's got boots. She's got blonde hair. She's kind of tall, long legs, everything. Okay. I'm like, damn, like she's pretty hot. Like I just see her from across the bar. We go inside, and I'm kind of here to like with the intention of meeting people, by the way. We go inside, sit down, me and my friend, sit down on this nice couch, kind of a quiet area. About 5 minutes pass. She struts towards the seat across from me, doing like this big sexy walk, sits down, and I go, that was quite the entrance. And she's clearly very drunk. We end up having this conversation. She's like, her dad might die. He has cancer. She's going through her phone, like showing all this stuff. Not really that engaged in the conversation, just kind of drunk and like venting. Yeah. And then she turns to me at one point and says, would you fuck me? And I'm like,
Wow, Buffalo Bill.
not in the state you're in. And then she asks me again, yeah, but would you fuck me? And I'm like, hypothetically. And then she gets up, leaves, and then goes back to her friend group and, something like that. Don't ever see her again. But that's a scenario where I would not fuck that person given the opportunity, even though it's perfectly legally, maybe even morally okay, because I feel like they're in an inebriated state. I think that's wrong. Would you
Well, I
think that's
agree
wrong?
with you.
Okay.
I do. I do.
Well, then there
I
you
think
go.
that,
That's an example
the,
of
the
not...
more drunk you are and the more emotionally compromised you are and the more maybe dumb you are, the harder it is to consent.
I'm just gonna say hi to Willie. Hey Willie.
Yo, what's up?
He was there. He can attest to that story.
I was the guy sitting next to
Yeah.
Greg during the
Good,
was
we
the
got
girl in the-
confirmation.
I can't hear you, Willie, but it's nice seeing you again.
It's nice seeing you too, bro.
He said it's nice.
It's
seeing
been
you.
a long time.
Anyways, our movie's at 7. I forgot that we're going to the movies tonight.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, I'll
But
wrap
I'm
this up.
eating dinner, so-
Okay. Well, guys, I mean, I think
Have we exhausted? Is there any big thing anybody wants to go to or talk about?
You asked why my view is better than his.
Yeah. If you could, yeah.
I guess in a couple ways. One is that labeling certain things unanswerable by science makes it so that when science does answer those things, people treat them, scientists, like heretics. Or they cast them out, excommunicate them, execute them. It just leads to horrible anti-truth kind of like behavior.
Like the world being like flat or something.
Yeah, the world being flat, the sun revolving around the earth, shit like that. And then I personally feel like that happens to me on social media, where if you say the thing that people don't want to admit is true, then you get called a pedophile, rapist, psychopath. Um, even if all you're doing is saying very mainstream, like academically accepted views, if you say them in the wrong place, in a fanatical, repressive, almost religious environment, like YouTube and
Like
Twitch,
what? Give us an example. What is this something like that?
like saying the cuties are hot does not mean you're a pedophile. Something like that, which would be a totally
I mean,
uncontroversial
what is
statement.
scientific about that, though?
If you said
What is
that
the
in a room full of
scientific part of that?
psychologists,
See, the
or in a
problem
room-
is there's nothing unscientific about that.
let me finish. Really smart people who study this for a living are all universally almost all going to agree with that statement.
What
But-
statement?
That if you say the cuties are hot in your cuties review, that doesn't mean you're a pedophile.
Right.
And then
If you're
and so
like
when
joking, or
so
there's
when
a
I
million
say
ways to
things
do
on
that.
social media, when I say things like, "Hey, I know that you think that you have a good grip on what's normal, but you don't," and so here's what I think is normal, and then people get really mad at me. It feels like part of this just like thick denial that I feel like I and others, and I'm sure both of you, from time to time, are wading through, and so it just feels it's anti-intellectual to say that you know the truth with no evidence, and so to me, like, I guess religion is just like a systemized version of that. And then the other thing I don't like about it is that I think that people are terrified of death, and I think they feel very alone in that, and being told to deceive yourself into thinking it's not going to happen, or tell yourself that you're going to heaven, is unfair to people. And it's like, I think that there's a closeness, and there's a solidarity that we could have if we could be more honest about this. That we don't
What,
have.
like porn or what?
Death.
The cuties thing?
About death.
About death. All right.
And I think it creates a lonelier, more fractured world when something we all have to deal with and that we all dread is denied. I think
agree with
denial
that.
pushes humans apart from each other and from ourselves.
We agree with that. I think we're both interested in confronting what we see as the greater truth, but your view of truth is limited to a scientific worldview, and mine is not. That's really the difference here.
I know, but I think you're just making it up.
I think science just makes a lot of stuff up, actually. A lot of things are just
Well,
theories.
that's my answer to Willie's question. Is I
Okay,
think
yeah,
that
that's fair.
you guys, not you guys, but I think that I'm against making stuff up, even if it feels good. For the most part.
I'm against making stuff
Okay.
up out of nowhere, too. I'm against that.
Well, our definitions of what
Our definitions of truth is a little different. See, my truth is tied to direct experience. Yours is
When
tied to
Mr. Can I just clear this, because this is driving me a little crazy? When Mr. Girl is saying truth, he means like a hard fact.
Yeah, he means like
Right?
evidence.
If
like,
you look up and you go, the sky is blue, that's like that's like a fact. He means that. He means
Yeah.
truth by that. You know?
yeah, he's talking about facts. And
Yeah.
when I say truth, I mean, I acknowledge those things are facts. Those things are real in this world that we're living in. But I think that there's a truth is tied to this experience that we're all having. And there's a greater truth that we as limited conscious beings,
The unknown truth.
the unknown. Well, yes, that's where faith, belief, love, these words that are just words, but what they're getting at is believing in something, some greater purpose to life. And it's something you can experience. It's not just something that some religious teacher told me or some bullshit like that. And I don't believe in rhetoric or institutions or getting people to believe in things out of fear. I believe in experiencing things. Well, see, this is where it's an impasse because, well, there's only so much we can talk about experience through a abstract conversation on Discord. But, that's kind of where we stand, I think.
When
All
friends,
right.
family, the general public, schools, communities, workplaces, whatever group I'm in starts denying things, and throwing the truth out into the trash pile.
I mean,
This is
your
very personal
example of that
this
was
is very personal for me because
Yeah.
I always end up being thrown in the trash pile too.
like what? Give us examples of this.
The cuties thing.
But what's the fact though that people, your friends and family, are denying in the cuties thing? That you said okay. Let me.
That when young preteen girls
Mhm.
shake their asses in booty shorts, if you think they're hot, that's normal. That doesn't make you a pedophile.
What is the science proving that that's normal? If we're talking about
You can
facts and
do
like
if you
all
I
that
want you to
stuff.
do your own research and you can Google whatever study would convince you of that and you will
Mhm.
find resoundingly that any time this has been tested of whether normal sexually non-deviant adults can be aroused by preteens, the answer is yes. It's an uncomfortable fact.
And I want to
And it's
add to
something
that.
people don't want to think about and something people want to deny. But talking about it does not make you a pedophile.
And science
And
has nothing to say about that.
the fuck does that mean? You mean science doesn't moralize?
Yes.
So this is my problem, is that not only are you throwing me under the bus, you're throwing preteen girls under the bus. Because there's no way to protect preteen girls from sexual predators if you are in so much denial that you think that only the rarest, most sexually
I didn't say
deviant
that.
person.
I never said that.
I'm not saying you're saying
okay.
it. I'm saying in the
Preteens.
general you of the you who are in denial
Okay.
about this.
Okay.
If you deny that human adults, normal human adults, can be sexually attracted to preteens, then you are unable to protect.
Well, we know they
preteens
can
from-
be. There's like pedos everywhere. There's nomad people all
I
over
just
Twitter.
said normal functioning average adults,
Uh-huh.
given the right circumstances and stimuli, can be attracted to preteens. If psychology knows this, but we don't use this knowledge to protect preteens because it makes you too fucking uncomfortable.
How do you
see
protect
how in my
preteens with
construction
that
you see how in my
knowledge?
construction of this,
Yeah.
your denial is actually hurting children.
No, I want you to explain that. How does that help me? Or help preteen girls or whatever, parents, whatever it is.
Because it allows us to see that child abuse is something that can occur in that there does not have to be a rare sexual deviancy in a family or teacher or whatever situation for there to be child abuse. So if somebody says like, somebody claims to be abused, and the response is like, oh no, I don't think that person's a pedophile. Or pedophiles are so rare that like how can we collectively
So you're saying like we
the
think
cognitive dissonance
it's
between
too
believing
rare?
that pedophilia
No, I think you're right. I think Mr. Girl's right
that
about this.
pedophilia is very rare and yet child abuse is very common.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words,
How do you
it's
hold
the
those two
unknown
thoughts?
that people don't want to confront. It's something that people would rather sequester away as a label, as a abnormality, rather than
Yes.
confronting some deeper truth.
But
I guess.
how does it make it safer is what I'm saying. How do we
It
implement
makes it safer
that?
for children if we could acknowledge that normal people, sexually normal people, can still end up abusing children. It makes it safer because it means that we have to be more diligent about safeguards for children. So like I'm working on a project about Discord and online grooming and our dialogues around pedophilia and child abuse. And if we acknowledge that, like especially say like a 14-year-old, if we acknowledge that a 14-year-old having private conversations with your average creator is in some form of danger, rather than saying, oh, well, they're only in danger if they're talking to a weird, sick pedo freak. When time after time after time, we're seeing
Saying
these gruesome
everybody's
allegations.
capable of doing it is what you're saying.
It's true.
Yeah, everybody is sexually capable of
Okay.
having an inappropriate conversation or interaction with a 14-year-old.
Everyone
Yeah.
is capable of doing the most evil, genocidal.
Everyone's capable
things.
of murder, right?
Yes.
And all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying? Like everything?
I believe
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. But not everybody's
Okay.
capable of fucking a cat. Not everybody is attracted to 2-year-olds.
But specifically preteens.
Well, I mean, what in social media land, you get called a pedophile for grooming a 14-year-old. That's just not pedophilia. It's child abuse, but it's not pedophilia.
So you just so we just exchange it with a different word or what? You know?
We don't have to call it anything. It's fucking child abuse. Call it grooming.
Yeah.
Grooming is a great word. The problem is that people then want to come up with a word to say like, well, what is psychologically different about the person who does that from me? The answer is maybe nothing.
I think Mr. Girl is trying to say we're better off trying to understand what we call pedophilia, or what is often mislabeled as that, rather than just throwing a label on it and sequestering it to...
Because anybody could be a pedophile.
No, I'm saying pedophilia has to
or
be...
Anybody
children
could... Anybody,
abuser.
Yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
can abuse children as well. Whatever, we're getting caught up on words. You know what I mean.
But the words matter.
But they do, yeah. The average adult is sexually equipped to abuse a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's right, and I'm not saying it is right. I'm saying it's wrong. But in order to stop it, we have to understand how it happens. And in social media land, where it is rife with child abuse, we are in extreme denial about how it happens. And so these labels to the people who are doing these things, rather than looking at the situational factors and other risk factors, I think hurts children. So this is just the one example of a time where I feel I've been thrown under the bus for trying to do something that I think protects children, and people prefer their own denial over that.
I give a closing response?
Yeah, go for it. Because I gotta go in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll keep this short. I agree with almost everything you just said, and I think this is why I actually enjoy this kind of conversation. I think you're an interesting person, is because, like I said before, I think you're just bringing to light what most people, if they really dig down deep enough, if they're really honest with themselves and how they view the world, would also agree with, or would also feel the same way. And it's only through facing that inner self, or whatever you want to call that darkness, that you're able to actually confront it. The thing is, though, I would take that a step further and say, in addition to that, there's an even greater reason that this is wrong or that this is evil. There is a moralizing reason. And it's because there exists a higher way of being, a higher state of consciousness, and a lower state. And abusing someone sexually is like something an animal would do. Is something some act of rape that would psychologically scar someone, cause more suffering, and worse than that, it would reduce you and that person to an animal. And I think we're greater than that. And I think our self-awareness and our consciousness is as true as anything possibly could be. Because if this isn't true, then nothing is true.
Mr. Girl?
Well, I don't agree with that. You know I don't agree.
Yeah, well,
but do you agree with the census of like...
It's wrong to groom a 14-year-old because they are not smart enough and don't have the foresight to understand what they're doing. But that doesn't mean grooming a 14-year-old means the groomers probably often have good intentions. They probably think that they're entering into a nice situation, or that they're in love with the person, or whatever, or they're a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they're like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. They're not thinking I'm going to fucking wreck this person's, like, I'm going to traumatize this fucker. That's not what they're thinking. I think that they're
thinking about the self. They're trying to think about self-gratifying.
They might even be thinking that they're saving the person or helping the person, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're thinking. And that's, again, where I feel like we get back into denial when we think of these people as inhuman predators.
Well, I'm not saying that.
No, you can predate without thinking or feeling like a predator. You could be a well-meaning predator, and based on the stories I'm seeing coming out of like the Smash community, most of the people seem like they are well-meaning.
Like Zero is what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Zero is trying to hurt the girl he asked for the ice picture. He's not trying to hurt her.
This is another thing, is that this conversation is only going to get more relevant because things like the Smash community, what's happening with this technology
There's
is
a
that
lot of minors in there. For
there's
sure.
minors in the
Yes.
same communities
Yeah, and
as
so-
older people. So this is only going to
Right,
get
so-
more normal of a problem.
Yeah, I think Discord is a big problem, and so I think Zero did hurt the girl, but I don't by asking for that picture and whatever other conversation he had with her. But I don't think that was his intention, and so I think we need to stop demonizing. In our understanding of why these things happen, we shouldn't dehumanize the people who do it, because otherwise we're just setting ourselves up for more.
All right, real quick, 4 minutes. How do you fix that though? Like real quick, like what do you
I
implement
think we
to
need to.
fix that?
I think Discord needs to accept that there is a serious child abuse problem happening on their platform.
Okay, and how does like
They
a
need-
community like Smash fix that? You know, not that that community is
I
that,
don't see
but
why.
you know,
So I'll
any
tell you what I've done in
community, schools,
my
whatever.
Discord. In my Discord, I've disabled people DMing me directly, and I have a public inbox. I'm like, if you want to have a private conversation with me, it can't be private. You have to put it in.
So
my
that way, like a
inbox
kid
channel.
can't message you.
Well, kids aren't even allowed in my Discord in the first place. But yes, if somehow even an 18-year-old can't message me, but nobody can message me. So this way, I cannot be grooming somebody on my Discord. I don't even have personal conversations with people on my Discord. I've never even joined a group chat or voice chat on my Discord. And I think that one is we just need to institute these norms of like when the creators are kind of like fraternizing with their followers, it's not a good idea, especially if there's minors. And two, I think Discord needs to implement some structural changes, whether that's like tracking who's a minor and who's an adult. I don't know how it would work, but like
Yeah, that's not gonna happen, probably, right?
I think it has to at some
And
point.
like you got to upload your ID or some shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, like what's practical, and I want to
Yeah.
try to figure it out.
I think
present
there
some
has to be
suggestions.
the culture, what people believe drives their actions more than anything, not the barriers in their way.
My problem is that only a pedophile would ask a 14-year-old for a nude. That thought, which is stupid, leads directly to, so it's okay for me and my buddies to chat and hang out with 14-year-olds because we're not pedophiles. That denial of like
Yeah, I
what is
agree with that.
appropriate and what isn't appropriate is directly leading to more child abuse. And we need to get to a point where no adult should be talking privately to 14-year-olds under any circumstances. There's no reason to do it.
What if they're like a coach or like any of that though? Like, I don't understand.
Okay, well, with the blessing of the parents, and if you know the parents,
Or like a
that's one thing.
babysitter, anything. Like that's
Yeah. No, I'm
you get what
talking about
saying?
creators. I'm talking about creators and Discord communities of people who don't know each other and do not have.
Oh,
any
talk
other
like
reason.
privately to a 14-year-old and you're like 25. Yeah, I think
it
that's
happens
you're fucking
constantly.
weirdo
There's
if you're
There's
doing
no
that.
reason for it. Yeah, I don't think it should happen.
Yeah.
I think that it should be 18 plus only if you're going to be having private conversations with.
I
your
agree, unless someone's asking for advice on something that.
Yeah, if somebody just shoots you a DM or whatever, I don't see how that'll. I don't know. I think you have a like more of a slippery slope view on all that shit, but that's not really my forte or whatever, and I don't want to start a whole new debate on that. But I got to get rolling, guys. It was a full thing. Thanks for having me. Obviously,
Thanks for being here, man.
it doesn't have to end. You guys can keep going or whatever. But yeah, sorry for my camera going wacko there. I'm at like 360p now.
Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate your
Deuces.
input.
I appreciate
Peace.
it too, man.
Well, Mr. Girl, I enjoyed this conversation, man. I get passionate and maybe I say things that are uncomfortable, and I think you say things that are uncomfortable to me, but I think that's good and healthy, and I think your viewpoint is actually interesting and valuable, especially in the modern time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you hearing me out and letting me hear you out,
Yeah, man.
and for the conversation.
Maybe we'll talk again at some point.
Well, yes, I think we should stay in touch.
For sure.
I would like that.
Me too. All right. Good luck, man, with your
All
stream.
right, you too.
Peace.
Thanks.
Well, guys, that's I'm gonna look at the chat really quick. Gonna look at the chat really quick, and then I actually have to go really soon, but I don't know if anybody had Is there anything important I should respond to from chat? I mean, I thank you guys all for watching. This will go up as a VOD, so keep that in mind in case you missed it or in case you want to rewatch it or whatever. This will go up as I'll even put chapters on it as a separate video. So to anyone who came in late or whatever. Just kind of looking at chat here. Chasing pleasure can lead you down these bad rabbit holes. You got to watch a movie. I do have to watch a movie really soon. Yo, what's up, Detective Deckard? A girl never recovers from that kind of abuse. Great stuff. Are you open to questions at the moment? I could take like a quick question or two. I will be late soonish, but that guy creeped me out. Without even attaching this moral judgment to him as this person specifically, I think his viewpoint is a necessary evil. That's how I view it. I think his viewpoint is evil, but it's not a lie. I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's lying. I think I don't think he has the whole truth. That's what it is. Cheers for the stream, Glink. Love your shot and Mr. Girl. Oh, appreciate it, man. Thank you, G. I got sleepy from all this. Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, conversations are nice, but they're actually not the most accessible or interesting way to present ideas. I think art, specifically music and film, are probably some of the best ways we have to express ideas, which is why I make films. So conversations, really, to be completely, and I even gave him this point, conversations are kind of usually a lot more about the ego, about the self, about the person talking. It's like part of why I'm doing this isn't just because I believe what I'm saying. I mean, that's the main reason, but it's also because, well, I want to get my name out there more. I think I have something interesting to say. You see how many times I'm bringing up the word I'm making it about me to some extent, obviously, but I think that's part of that is necessary for like, living in this world, making money, making connections. I mean, yeah, there's a limit to that, but, yo, what's up, Tech? Thanks for the extra clips. I always word this as, I wouldn't trust him with my kids, but I would play sports with him. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would, it's not even personal. I wouldn't trust him with my kids, but to be honest, I wouldn't trust most people with I don't know. I don't even have kids. So what am I to say? But I feel like I would be kind of, I don't know, protective. Maybe you don't want to be too protective, but somebody said, I asked because you failed to establish that line, which seemed to simply deny any artistic side of value to porn. Let me scroll up. Sorry. What did you ask? Are you open to questions? I mean, I'm sure porn can have artistic value, or sex can have artistic value, certainly. But the thing is, it's like, when I'm talking about porn, I'm not talking about like some masterful art piece that drives you emotionally to some greater questions about yourself and your life. I'm talking about like guy fucking a girl, that's what I'm talking about. Like penetration. Like that's what 99% of porn that guys watch is oriented around, or whatever. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be guy fucking a girl, but you get the idea, just like raw penetration. And, and I acknowledge though, as well, there is a difference, I think, like girls and whatever, the kind of porn that's like more erotica, that plays more into the imagination, that's more story driven, that's less literal and less visual oriented. I don't think that's as harmful or as, much of a pitfall potentially as the very visually stimulating porn is. Maybe that could, I don't know. I really haven't thought about that enough or like experienced that enough to say with any certainty, but like I think like reading an erotica novel is like many degrees lower in terms of warping your perception of reality, because it is an abstract imagination. Sure, it's giving you ideas rather than you coming up with them yourself, I guess. But, do you really come up with any ideas yourself? Probably not. So it's like, I'm okay with that level of abstraction for the most part. I don't think that's going to cause irreparable harm to society or people's expectations of sex, an erotica novel, I mean. But, vast amounts of hardcore pornography accessible through a smartphone any time of day to young people. Yeah, I think that is and will continue to cause harm to society on every level, basically. And I'm not saying I'm better than people who do that, because I've done that, and I occasionally will. I mean, I see porn on Twitter all the time. I don't jerk off to it, but I see porn all the time. Yeah. Anyways, you heard me by now. This is exactly how I see the world. Well, you have the yin yang symbol, no one, so that makes sense. That's a very powerful symbol. I mean, it's obviously overused and like commodified and, all that, but the actual symbols are a great way to view the world in general. That's kind of my perception. Objective truth isn't a scary concept unless it's not actually true. I think the opposite. I think objective truth is a scary concept that a lot of people shy away from, because it means everything they do matters. It means that not only do things matter in this life, but they matter in some greater design that we can't even fully conceive of. It's like, oh shit, wait, what are we in? What is this? It raises a lot of questions, doesn't it? At least to me. Do you think the trend of spirituality going away will continue, or do you think we can stop it? That's an excellent question. I think probably what's going to happen is that there will be one or two or more separate worlds, and one of them will be one of them will be completely defined by science, and one of them will be open to the mysteries of God or the universe or universal consciousness or whatever this greater design is. And I think at some point the rubber's going to meet the road. I mean, if you ask me, I listened to McKenna a lot actually. And I think McKenna was a very wise man ahead of his time. He said something that really stuck with me. He says, I was given the choice of death or exile, and I've chosen exile. I think I would do something similar. Like, I think I'd rather, there's like against the defined matrix world, like you can either just be killed or choose exile. And I think I would choose exile. What makes you guys think spirituality is going away? Sure, churches areas are closing, but online new spirituality is growing just as much. Well, yeah, I mean, I do think it's growing, but at the same time, it's like things are so fractured where it's like, in certain pockets of the internet, it's more alive than it's ever been. There is a fascination. There's a renaissance with that stuff, but in certain corners of the internet, it's like, not even to the internet, just life. It's like people are so tied to the scientific deterministic view that they view themselves as essentially a robot or an animal, and that their life is worth nothing, and that life itself is just subjective in its meaning, and that nothing really matters. And they stay inside looking at a screen all day, jerking off to pornography with increasingly weirder tastes. I mean, that's basically a prison of the mind as far as I see it. But, I am not, I also do have some faith, though, I will say, in there being a sort of archaic revival, a sort of revival of viewing life with mystery, with imagination. And there's always a chance of that. There's always hope for that, because despite all of history and all of the societal conditions and all that turn you away from that, not all of history, by the way, I would just say history starting in the 1700s, where the scientific worldview was adopted. We all experience that in childhood. That's the thing. In childhood, you view the world with imagination. Things are not so defined, and we all have memories of our childhood. Some were not great. Some were not, great childhoods, and that's tragedy, and that's horrible. The good news, this is where I show psychedelics, is that as an adult, you can experience something kind of similar to that through altered consciousness. Not Glink Church. See, that's also the pitfall of cults, is where they make it about the self. I'm God. God is speaking to me. I don't believe that in any specific way. I just think we all have a connection to this universal source of creation. The world needs Christian values: modesty, loyalty, charity, patience, hard work, community. And I do believe in Christ being the ultimate example for man. That is something I believe, because I believe the Christ story of self-sacrifice and perfection. Well, I don't think anybody can be perfect, but I think striving towards that is the way. Striving towards being the selfless, but yet it's like Christ is like the most selfless person, but he's also the most famous person in the world. Isn't that interesting? Like the idea of the Christ, the character, is the most selfless person. And yet, is there any name more famous than Jesus? No. And that was how many thousands of years ago? You know, that's something to think about there. But, you know, I'm not saying I would ever achieve that balance. But striving towards it is an ideal, for sure. Anyways, I think that about covers it. I think you guys, this is great. You guys have some great comments. I wish, I'm sorry I didn't read anything in the chat while I was doing that, but I'm sure you understand why, you know, because I'm obviously into the conversation. So yeah, more videos. Also, to anyone who's still paying attention, who's still interested, also on this channel, aside from conversations like this, I will be doing more videos where like I'm out walking around talking about different topics, recording myself and putting those out as like short 10, 15-minute things. Like, for example, why I stopped playing games as much, and is like one topic, or like, I don't know, like the influence of Twitch stream, the unchecked influence of Twitch streamers. Yes, no one. Exactly. I think consciousness has something to do with higher dimensions, or maybe even multiple dimensions. I mean, yes. And it's not even that crazy of a notion. It's something one can experience. That's why I keep shilling psychedelics, but you don't need psychedelics to do it. But that's exactly it. It's like there are higher dimensions. I mean, science even has theories on this, I guess. But yes, that's basically it. If you can answer my question. Sorry, I didn't see your question. What did you say? Do you think drawn porn depicting children is child porn? I think to some degree, but not to the same degree that an actual image of that is. You know, but it's a stage above erotica. You know, it's like I don't know if I have like a, you know, like a meter for this, but like it's definitely a stage above just erotica. It's a stage, I would say it's probably a stage below like real life things, but I still don't like the path that leads down, and I don't like what that indulges one in. Told you we're alike? Well, yeah. See, that's the thing, is that we're all more alike than we are different. It's like, this is why I say greater truth, not just because I've experienced it, because it's something anyone can experience. It's something other people have experienced. It's like, what I'm saying is, yeah, maybe it sounds alien or foreign to someone who's never had such experiences, but to someone who has, it's like we're connecting. And I've had these conversations with people who get it, and we connect. It's not like this big hurdle of like, well, it's not a scientifically provable thing. It's like, okay, well, maybe science is not the end all be all of this existence. It's just a measure of this. It's just a measure of one facet. It's just, science it's literally a collection of data points derived from our perception of this 3D dimension, world, galaxy, universe, whatever that we have perception of. That's what science is. It says nothing about where those dimensions came from, or why they're there, or what they mean, or what you should do, or who you are. Nothing. And try as he might, Mr. Girl does not have an answer to that. That's detached from the self. You know, of course, everyone has their own subjective answers to that, maybe. But is there a universal one? Well, that's the question of, that's exactly what I'm interested in. You could live in a Neuralink 24/7 porno with food and water, drip feeds attached to your body your whole life, but you're not going to inspire anybody or contribute to the world. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the end point of this scientific worldview, is something like that. It's like, just, take happy pills, inject yourself with happy dopamine forever. And that's it. You're just a lab experiment. I feel like this guy's trying to open my third eye. Please stop. Well, that's only something you can do yourself. So, but anyways, guys, that's good. I could go on. You know, this is great. This is great. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to end the stream now.